I canceled my ChatGPT Plus subscription exactly 90 days ago because after using it every single day for over a year, I ran into 4 specific problems that I just couldn't fix until I moved my entire workflow to Claude. So today I'm going to walk you through the 4 things that made me switch, what Claude does that ChatGPT can't, and why this matters more right now than it did 6 months ago. But before I get into what Claude does differently, let me tell you what actually made me switch in the first place. When ChatGPT first launched in 2023, I used it for everything: drafting, brainstorming, quick research. It handled all of that pretty good, and for about a year I didn't feel like I needed anything else. But once my work got more serious and I started relying on it for actual projects, the problems started stacking up. Context kept disappearing between sessions. Outputs kept drifting back to the same generic tone no matter what I told it. And I was re-uploading the same files and rewriting the same instructions every single time. And then, earlier this month, OpenAI started rolling ads into ChatGPT conversations, which for me was the confirmation that the product is heading in a direction that doesn't line up with how I use it. When the business model starts leaning toward ad revenue, the incentives change, and I'd rather use a tool where the company makes money by giving me the best answer, not by keeping me in the chat longer. So I started testing other tools, and Claude is where I ended up for 4 main reasons. The first one is writing quality, and you feel this one immediately. You give ChatGPT any writing task, and what comes back is headers you didn't ask for, bullet points where you wanted paragraphs, and the same generic AI words scattered through every response no matter how many times you tell it to write differently. You can put "keep it casual, no formatting" right in the prompt, and it'll listen for a reply or two before going right back to how it always writes. With Claude, casual and simple actually stays casual and simple. Word limits are respected, banned phrases don't sneak back in, and the instructions hold up for the entire chat. That level of consistency is something I simply never got from ChatGPT. And then there's custom styles, which is the feature that made the biggest difference for me. Inside Claude, you can paste samples of your own writing, things like posts, transcripts, or articles, and Claude builds a full style profile from them that carries your phrasing and your tone into everything it writes for you going forward. So I'll type, "write a short LinkedIn post arguing that motivation is a myth." And what comes back actually reads like something I wrote, right down to my exact word choices and the way I pace my sentences. I used to spend 15 to 20 minutes reworking every ChatGPT response before I could use it anywhere. And with custom styles, I'm down to reading it back and swapping maybe a sentence or two, which across a full week saves me around 5 or 6 hours. Now, when you combine custom styles with projects, the whole thing compounds. A project in Claude is a workspace where you upload your files, write custom instructions, and build a knowledge base that holds around 500 pages of material. And every conversation you start inside that project picks up all of that context automatically. So my writing project already has my style guide, my formatting rules, and about 30 pages of reference material loaded in. I open a new chat, and Claude already knows how I want things done before I type anything. ChatGPT has its own version of projects, but in my experience, the instructions don't stick as well over longer conversations, and the memory tends to mix together across different chats instead of staying inside that one workspace. Claude keeps everything separate, and that combination of reliable writing, a custom voice profile, and memory that doesn't reset is what sold me on the switch. That covers how Claude handles your writing and your context. But what surprised me the most was something I didn't expect an AI chatbot to do at all, and it's the feature I now use more than anything else. And by the way, if you want to build this exact workflow without starting from scratch, I've put together a free checklist that covers all my Claude settings, from custom styles to projects. You can grab that right down from the description. The second reason is artifacts, and this is easily the most visual difference between the platforms. When you ask any AI chatbot for help, you normally get text back, maybe a paragraph, a list, a code snippet, and then you copy that text and paste it into whatever app you actually need it in. But Claude works differently. When I ask Claude to build something, it creates a live, interactive output right inside the conversation in a separate panel next to the chat. It builds actual working software you can click around in and test immediately. So I'll type, "build me a dashboard that tracks my weekly content output across 4 platforms." And Claude creates an interactive dashboard with charts, input fields, and working logic right there in the browser. I can click through it, test it, and if I want to change something, I just tell Claude what to adjust, and it updates the artifact in real time. I've used this to build project trackers, content calendars, client intake forms, and data visualizations that I would have spent hours making in a spreadsheet or paid someone to build. Claude does it in about 2 minutes, and because artifacts support persistent storage, the data I enter actually saves between sessions. This extends to everyday documents too. You can ask Claude for a complete slide deck or a written report, and it builds the exact file right there in the panel for you to click and save. If you write code, there's also Claude Code. It's a separate tool that lets you hand off full coding tasks straight from your terminal. It can navigate your files, run tests, and write working code across an entire project without you managing each step. But all of that gets even better when Claude can pull your work directly from the apps you already use, and that's what the next feature does. The third reason is 2 features that work together, and once you see them side by side, you'll understand why this is where Claude pulls the furthest ahead. Claude has something called connectors that runs on MCP, which stands for Model Context Protocol. And what it does is plug Claude directly into the apps you already use. So let me show you what this looks like. I'll go to a conversation and I'll type, "Pull my latest project brief from Google Drive." And Claude goes into my drive, finds the file, and brings it into the conversation without me opening a single tab. If I need something from my Gmail, then it's the same thing. I'll type, "Find the message thread about the performance reports," and Claude pulls it in. Right now, the directory has over 50 integrations, things like Google Drive, Slack, Gmail, and GitHub. And because MCP is open source, new ones keep showing up almost every week. Now, on top of connectors, there's a feature called skills. And this is one I think most people haven't heard about yet. Skills are basically custom commands you build yourself. You package a specific workflow or a set of rules into a tool, give it a name, and then you can call it up inside the chat whenever you need it. I built a skill called Brief Builder that takes messy notes and converts them into a polished format. So I'll type, "Using Brief Builder, take these rough notes and turn them into a clean brief." And because I called that specific skill, Claude pulls up the right template, organizes the messy text into the right headers, and formats the final output exactly how I like it. And together, these tools take Claude from a chatbot that knows a lot about the world to something that knows about your world and works the way you work. But all of that matters a lot more when the AI behind it can actually keep up, which brings me to the fourth reason. The fourth reason is the model itself. And a lot of people skip over this because they assume the big AI models are all pretty much the same. But they're not, and the gap right now is bigger than you'd expect. Claude's latest model, Opus 4.6, came out on February 5th, and the benchmarks really speak for themselves. On GDP-Val, a benchmark that measures how well AI performs real-world tasks in finance, legal work, and research, Opus 4.6 scores 144 points higher than GPT 5.2. On BrowseComp, which tests how well a model tracks down hard-to-find information online, Opus 4.6 hits 84%. And on ArcAGI2, which measures how well a model handles problems it's never seen before, Opus 4.6 lands at 68.8%, while GPT 5.2 sits at 54.2%. And the context window is where it gets interesting. Opus 4.6 handles 1 million tokens, which is roughly 750 pages of text in a single conversation. But capacity doesn't matter if the AI gets confused. So on the test that checks if it can actually find details in that pile of text, it scored 76%, where the previous model sat at just 18.5%. That massive memory works alongside adaptive thinking to keep things moving. The model figures out on its own when to give a quick answer and when to pause for deep reasoning, so you never have to toggle settings or pick a mode. Then to keep the conversation going over the long haul, it uses context compaction. Instead of hitting a wall like you do on ChatGPT, Claude automatically compresses the older parts of the chat so you can keep building on your work without ever starting over. Every feature I've shown you in this video works as well as the model behind it. And right now, on the tasks that actually matter for everyday work, Opus 4.6 is ahead in a way you notice from the very first conversation. But that intelligence means nothing without context, and that is why projects change my workflow the most, because having your rules and files ready to go is a massive upgrade. But even the best tool fails if you don't know how to talk to it. So I condensed Google's 6-hour prompt engineering course into just 12 minutes so you can start writing better prompts and getting better results. Click the video on the screen and I'll see you right there.